This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home Podcast. This is the show where we talk about life-giving habits for flourishing family culture. Today on the show, I'm so excited to be chatting with Myquillyn Smith. She's written so many beautiful books about making a home for our families, a place that is safe and beautiful and where people can come into and be restored. And I'm so excited to talk to her today about her new book, House Hushing, all about decluttering and making our homes more peaceful for our families. Thank you for joining me today, Myquillyn.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Such a delight. I'm so impressed with this new book. I haven't gotten to see the whole thing. I haven't held it in my hands yet, but the cover is so beautiful. I love decluttering books. I have a few like Remodelista and a few of those in my home because I aspire to that, clear surfaces. But if I turn my camera around and you saw my desk, we just moved 2 weeks ago. So I do have that in my favor. We're trying to combine two houses, Myquillyn. And, we had like an Airbnb. So we'd left a lot of our stuff there and we'd moved. And while I was gone, I bought a lot more books. And so I am struggling. Help me. What do I do with the stack of there's probably 10 books stacked in one stack on my nightstand. It's not even safe.
Sounds like you have an emergency. No, listen, you got to give yourself time. Congratulations on your new house. It just takes a while to settle in. I think you need to give yourself a good year before you even start being I need to get this right. You don't know what the light comes in the room and which room gets hot, and you might switch rooms with things. You have to learn your house for a while. I know you're ready to get it all decorated and get it all organized, but I think there is a period where you just have to settle in for a little bit.
Yeah, that is good advice because I'm doing my best to pace myself. Like, my husband and I are going to take a little vacation for our anniversary. My grandbaby's going to celebrate her birthday here. So there have been more important things to do than find a home for all these books. But I'd love to hear, how, what made you want to write this book?
Well, I don't consider myself an organized person or a decluttering person at all. I'm a person who loves beautiful things. I love houses. I love to decorate. I love throw pillows and lamps. However, when you are a person who loves that stuff, I don't even wear a wedding ring. I would rather have, I don't care about shoes. I would rather have decor. I'm just a decor girl. And when you're a decor girl, 30 years, after about 1 year of shopping yard sales, I'm real good at finding great deals. And I know a lot of people can, kind of relate to that. We see possibility and all kinds of stuff. We're creatives. But what happens, the downside of that is stuff starts piling up. And if you're a person who feels like, I really want to be a good steward of this chair that I got for $25. It doesn't look good there, but maybe I can find a place or maybe I'll find someone for it. Over time, those things begin to add, and you come to a point where the beautiful home that you've created so that you can use it for your grandbaby's first birthday and all kinds of wonderful things, you're not actually using it for that because you can't find the scissors, your closets are stacked full, and you've lived there over a year, and you know that it's time to declutter. But there are people like me who decluttering is a little bit scary because, no one's like, I can't wait to declutter. But I think we have different reasons why. And for me, I was afraid I would have to put at risk my cozy, warm, inviting home that I've created. Every little tchotchke, every little throw blanket, you're like, oh, that adds to the coziness. That adds to the spirit of my home. Decluttering is going to put that at risk, and all these things I've worked so hard to create, what am I going to do? It's going to take the home that I love away. So I feel like this house hushing book is kind of like decluttering for people obsessed with beauty. Decluttering for people who are collectors and love soul, because we have to declutter too. And what this does is it teaches, it's just a little method that has you, I call it backwards decluttering, so that you experience the joy and the simplicity of a room that's been, I call it hushed, a room with less, before you make any of those decisions. You don't have to pick up everything and say, when's the last time I used it, or does it spark joy, or any of those questions. You just put it in another room for a couple of days and you experience the room that you quieted or that you hushed. And what that does is it proves to people like me that, oh, this room, it still has a rug, it still has curtains, it still has my lamps, it still has my seating and my surfaces. It actually works really well. Maybe I'll bring a plant back in, maybe I'll bring something back in, but I don't need the layer and level of chaos that I had before. So it's just an easier way without all that decision fatigue to declutter. It's just another method.
Yeah, that's so helpful because, in our life, we've moved 22 times. And I've never had the opportunity in some ways to like have an attic full of treasures. But I'm also very sentimental. So I have tended to then drag around with me, the picture that my grandma embroidered or the box of letters from my husband, children, so many little things that have these memories. I actually have a clock right now that hung in my grandma's house and it is broken and it is just sitting there gathering dust. But I remember that clock chiming in my grandma's house. Like, I can't get rid of this. And so, what do you say to those people who are like myself, maybe a little bit sentimental and also, in my childhood, we did not have a lot. And so I think that definitely contributes to me wanting to hang on to things. Moving has helped me not be a hoarder, but I definitely there are too many books sitting over there.
Well, and I do think also when you move a lot and you know you're going to move, it can have the reverse effect. People are like, oh, you must declutter all the time. But sometimes you're like, well, I'm going to move in a year. I might save this for my next house because I might need this bookshelf there. I don't know what that's going to hold. So it can have the opposite effect, which can be hard as well. Also, I will say, if you think you might be moving another year, you're probably like, Myquillyn, I don't want to wait a year to get organized here. We might be moving. So in that case, I would say, if you know you need book storage, find a beautiful bookcase in your own timeless style that will work with any house that you're going to live in that's not too big, not too small, that you can move with you. So you really focus on those things that you can take with you to other homes. Okay, the question for sentimental people, things like that, I think we should have all of that stuff. And that I think that our homes, if they don't have that layer of soul, it's sad. It's not really a home, it's a house. So I think that's something that maybe minimalism has a bad name about, because if you're a minimalist or if you follow minimalism people, they have one thing to do, and that is get rid of your stuff. You want a peaceful house, you got to get rid of it. You want a peaceful house, that's it. That's all there is to offer. And it is a very good thing. We probably all have too much stuff. However, there are more ways to turn down the visual volume. And that's really what I'm talking about, is because that's how you and I, when we walk in our house and we're like, ugh, this don't feel good. It's that visual volume of our stuff. It's the stuff we are seeing. So that's really what I talk about a lot. And so even thinking about your books, okay, the books that you have, a stack of 10 books, sometimes just getting those behind closed doors or in a basket. Now, instead of seeing 10 different titles with 10 different covers and 10 different fonts and 10 different colors, 100 different things, we see one beautiful basket with a lid, and that reads as one thing. And so there are things that we can do in our home without getting rid of stuff that honors our story, that honors our past, because that's what our home should do. But there are tricks that, I think for your clock, I think you need to go get it fixed. Look on Facebook, ask around. You got to get it fixed. You got to get it hung up.
I do agree with that. And I love the idea of putting things behind something. I do actually have a drawer in my nightstand that is dedicated to all the books on my TBR list, because I can't read them all at once, but I don't want to just shelve them somewhere where I'll forget. And so, yeah, I need to put some of those books in the drawer and put some things in baskets, or even maybe box it back up, because part of what I did when I moved in here is I was just like, I need to find a place for everything, or it's got to go. And I've been really aggressive about that because we don't even have a lot of storage. But sometimes you maybe do need to just put some stuff in a storage unit until you can make that decision. I read a little bit recently about Swedish death cleaning, which I think is also motivating. You know, my husband and I were both in our 50s. And so I think that is also motivating this new level of like, no, we're not putting stuff in storage. We're gonna purge it all. We're gonna make sure that our kids don't come back. I homeschooled for almost 30 years. That's part of my story. And I was just when we moved in, we had this closet that had kept locked because we moved back into a house that was an Airbnb for a little while. So it's our home. We Airbnb'd it and locked up a few closets. So this one closet has like all of my children's schoolwork from years. Like I have, you know, my 25-year-old son's fifth grade book reports in this box. And will that son ever really want to read those book reports or see that stuff? Do I need it for any kind of state record keeping anymore? No, absolutely not. And yet, Myquillyn, when I pulled out some of the notebooks, because we do literature based notebooking method. And so I pulled out some of these notebooks, and my daughter was like flipping through the pictures, and they brought up all these memories for her. And she looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she's like, "Thank you so much for homeschooling me." And so there was a purpose in holding on to some of that. What do you do to discern, like, this is something that nobody's going to need? This is something I don't want my kids to have to sort through after I die. Okay, this is something that will actually be a treasure and bring up these special emotions for them.
Yes. Well, you know what they say, when everything is important, nothing has value. So at some point, when you decide you're done with the closet of stuff, I think first you decide how much you're willing to keep, how much of your space you are willing to say, this is worth keeping whatever. Or if your kids want some, they could say, I want all of my stuff, or they could say, I want a shoebox full. So you can go both ways. For me, I have one bin. It's only half full, and that's I am not a sentimental person though, but that's like all of my kids' little papers, little drawings, anything that we really wanted to keep goes in that one bin. And then I pulled it out the other day because we're recording this and it was the Stanley Cup last week, and my kids are Hurricanes fans, and so they've been fans for 20 years. They had little drawings when they were little, and I wanted to like text them to pictures of them. And so it was easy to find those couple things that I was looking for. And then it made those few things important. And I think now, because every birthday, when they come for dinner, I get out all the pictures of them and spread them around the table. And I think I'll get a couple of the drawings. But I think it's helpful just to go ahead and decide what's the most important, because then that gives it value. Think about if you had a gallery wall with 4-inch pictures of it, you know, all over, then no one sees anything. But when you have one photo blown up, then that gets the attention it deserves. So you'll be able to do that and just keep a couple things, and they'll still say, Mom, I'm so thankful that you homeschooled me.
Do you have like a decluttering rhythm? You know, we have a restoration home community where we work on habits for flourishing families. And the habit that we're doing in the month that we're recording this is decluttering, because it does sort of have to be built into your life. And one of the things that I have done in my life to help sort of cut down on that visual noise is just not make shopping a habit, because I think that's where we really get into trouble, is when we're just bringing in more than when we're putting out. But do you make, like, is there a days of the week, or do you have a decluttering rhythm, or is it just when things get annoying, you work on it?
I find that I do a huge, big decluttering in January, which is kind of a normal thing. I literally hush my house every single January, and I do it with my community. And I think it's because that rhythm of, I don't know, it feels like in January we want a fresh start. But as like a decorator type of person, I find that as I'm pulling out like little fall decor, something about fall and winter, I find myself kind of filling up my house a little bit more. Or, you know, if the kids are home or in school, if I'm in that stage, stuff seems to layer in. And by January, you want it all gone. And I feel like that's when I'm the most frustrated, which means that's when I'm the most motivated. It's less about time for me and more about like, when do I hate this? And I'm like ready to go. And so that has been January. So I take a month and I work through like 4 main rooms. But I try to go a little bit deeper than that. And that works for me right now. And then when the spirit hits, like last week, it was not January at all. And I started thinking about I went to my basement for something, and I realized I had a lot of stuff that I used to have, like a festival at my house when we moved from there. I don't do that anymore. And I had thought about starting a shop, and I'm like, I got like 20 bins of decor, and I write books, and I need some of it, but my house is decorated, and I knew it was time to part with it. And it's cute stuff. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. I could get like money for it, but I didn't want to deal with it. It's one thing to have like one cool bicycle you sell for $500 on Facebook Marketplace, but I had like 500 $5 things. I can't deal with that. So instantly I brought it all up, set it on the dining room table, and called my friends and told them they could have it all. And three took a carload, and then I had a carload to take back to the Goodwill. But my point is, when the inspiration leads, I don't care if I'm like getting ready for church. I will try to do something, because I feel like that inspiration, that motivation is so priceless, that for me, I have to pay attention to when that.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the decor, because it is hard. We're celebrating our children. We have this small shed, our only storage. And I was going through that recently. We hosted my daughter's wedding on my property. So we have like a couple boxes of table coverings and candles. And then I had this little old like box it had a couple of paper lanterns and a heart garland and some weird dry fruit decorations. And it's like those things, maybe I will need them again for a party. And that's the kind of stuff that can kind of bog us down a little bit, is those seasonal things. Because when we're making a home for children, there is this desire to celebrate and create moments of beauty and feasting for them. And yet we also have to somehow live in our homes. So I love that, you maybe seasonally will go through even those decor items so they're not piling up. How do you organize some of that stuff? Because I definitely need, maybe clear bins, maybe better labels. Like there is a problem with this situation where I had to open every box to even see what was in it.
Listen, I've done exactly that. I first decide what space I'm willing to give. So since we moved to this house, I used to only have like 4 bins of Christmas decor. I have a lot more of Christmas decor now, but I have a lot less of everything else. So I know that I have this kind of built-in ledge in my basement, and that is where my extra decor can go. This is what I'm telling myself. We'll check in next year. I'll tell you if I held to it, but I'm like, I'm not letting that grow any deeper. If that's it, that's all I'm allowed. And so I think first deciding the space, your shed, our son got married here in March, and it was very tempting. We had like 4 boxes of candles, the battery kind that I hung, and you just all kinds, like you said, lace and stuff that you're like, someone would love this, or what if someone else needs this? But I'm like, you know what? If I have 3 boys, if one of my other boys gets married here, their fiance is going to want something different. They're not going to want to use all of Sarah's stuff. So I asked them if they wanted it. They didn't. And one of the friends that I had come over, I'm like, listen, there's some stuff you might want to use for your church, or well, we both go through for church, because she decorates the stuff, and like maybe, and ended up like they all shared the candles. One had a party, and it just feels, I'm telling you, it felt so much better to give it away than to keep it just in case. And I think we've all had that time where we like kept something just in case, and then like 3 years later, it either got wet, or it got broken, or it melted, or it molded, and then you're like, oh, I saved this. Someone could have been using it, and now I just have to throw it in the trash. So I have done that too many times. So I think first just deciding how much of my space am I willing to give towards storage for things that I might use. Like, okay, if we're 50 and we're going to live till we're 90, we have 40 years. And if I'm going to use them a month out of the year for the next 40 years, like that's a really small percentage of my life. But then if you're thinking about it's taking up half my basement, like that's a big percentage of my house, like you could do math like that even.
Yeah. I love that you have a community to share with. I have been putting stuff on my front porch. Like a lot of the people in my community homeschool. So I've been like putting a bunch of the books out there, because I think it is, being myself a little bit sentimental. It's also hard to part with these things that have memories. And it's a lot easier if there's somebody who wants them. Like I just dropped off a table. I had an extra table I dropped off with a friend yesterday, and that made me so happy to be able to give my friend the table because it's true. I mean, for some of us, I don't really have time to like do a garage sale. I don't have that kind of time. I've put a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace because at least then somebody else is getting it. But yeah, if it's $105 items, I don't have time to list all these individual things. So I love that idea of having a community and even this shared, because I'm sure if you did have a wedding again, you could ask your church friend to borrow some of that stuff from the church. So have,
That's so,
yes,
oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that.
yeah, but just having, having a community there where you can crowdsource a little bit for these events. And that is what happened with my daughter's wedding is, my sister had saved, she has a lot of storage. And so she kept, all kinds of wine glasses and dishes. She had everything. And then, I saved the stuff I saved and then we'll, source it for the next wedding. There's lots of kids. But how wonderful to have that kind of a community. One of the things that I've also been working on is, I mentioned this briefly earlier, is not shopping as much. For a little while, I had made thrift store shopping a hobby. Like I really enjoy thrifting, especially for clothes. I feel like I find such interesting pieces and like converting my wardrobe to natural fibers. I find these beautiful wool sweaters and they even sort of become mementos. Like we were in Paris in the spring for my daughter's birthday and I found this like wool sweater in a vintage shop for €5. I was so excited about it. And yet then I came home and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have 3 other thrifted wool sweaters in my closet. And now we've moved to a house that has a slightly smaller closet and I'm like, I cannot make thrifting a hobby. How do you, decide when is your shopping time and when is your decluttering time?
It's true. You're either in one attitude or another. I will say that that's another thing that giving my stuff away has helped curb a little bit. I love to thrift too, but when I used to sell my stuff, then if I was out thrifting, I'd be like, oh, if I don't use it, I'll just sell it. So it's so much easier to buy it because I'll just sell it. But when you know that, guess what? From now on, I'm just giving everything away. So if I don't use this, I'm not going to recoup my money. I'm going to give it away. And I think that has helped me. That's helped me a lot. Even just this weekend shopping with my mom, I saw 2 beautiful things. They would both go in my house, but I couldn't quite place where they would go. In the past, we're both in the same stage of life, but 20, 30 years ago, we were furnishing our homes. We had kids that needed desks and chairs. And so it is hard to get out of that mindset. When you go to a thrift store, you see a chair for $7. You're like, oh my gosh, yes. Because for so long, we were collecting things for a growing family home that we needed, and we could always find a place for it. It was like we always needed it, at least I did. And now I'm like, oh, my house, I don't need any more seating, Jennifer. I don't need any more, I don't need it. So it would have to be something that I would have to trade out. And so I am still experiencing that, but yeah, one of the ways that does help me learn is to give it away so that I feel that pain of like, ooh. And also I remember how it felt 20 and 30 years ago when older ladies were giving stuff away to me or when they gave to the thrift store, because that counts as well. And I found it and I got to buy the $7 chair. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe some crazy person gave this chair away. Well, now I am the crazy person that gave the chair away because I'm like, this is I got to get it out. And I hope someone that really needs it, finds it, loves it, and feels like they got the deal of a lifetime.
That's so good. We just actually helped an older couple move. They're in their 70s and they had moved a couple times. Like we'd helped them a couple other times move. And we went into their garage. We were picking up some moving boxes from them for our move. And they had boxes and boxes of toys for their grandchildren. Their kids are all grown, but they had, marble runs and magnet tiles. Like they had several boxes. And it was partly kind of encouraging for me because I too have saved, like I have a bin of trains, a bin of Legos. Like I took really good care of my children's toys and we were very careful to, I taught my kids to pick up their toys, took great care of it. So I still have, a bin of Playmobiles, a bin of Legos, a bin of Duplos, a bin of trains, a bin of Calico Critters. But that might even be too much for the small, we're living in like a 1,600 square foot house with this one shed. It might even be too much. How do you decide with kids stuff? Like you talked about saving just a few of their pictures but what about the toys when you're thinking ahead to having grandkids and the happy days to come? How do you decide when and what? And even, a lot of my moms listening, they're still in that toy year, that toy era. We were like, okay, no electronic toys, no new categories. Like we were like, okay, you have Calico Critters. You don't also need Melee and Barbies and Polly Pockets. Like we can only have a few categories and then just build into those categories. So tell me a little bit about how in the years of parenting, how you sorted that. And then later on, like what you decide to keep.
Well, I am a toy mom. I love toys. I love buying toys. And I only had boys. So we only had like half the toys. But realized that in a couple of our houses we had a big playroom and I had all the shelves and all the baskets, and they did not play like that. Like they played with Legos and trains and some Playmobil, and then they played hockey outside and lived that for the rest of their life. So I had to come to terms with like all the little dinosaurs and all the every little category of things, the Beyblades and the little cars and that I was keeping organized. They really didn't play with all of that. So when it came time to keep stuff, same thing. We only kept trains and Legos. I have 2 bins of Legos, 1 bin of trains, and we started getting them out every Easter. I don't have grandkids yet, but we have neighbors, and now they are part of my house. Like the Legos are out in the room for our next door neighbor boys will come over and play. They're 6 and 4 and 3, And so I'm really glad that I am glad I kept them, because when my friends, I have young friends, when they come over with their children, I want them to be able to play with something. And I also want the things that my kids loved the most. And for them, that was trains and Legos. Will people see a video of this or no? Because
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stand up for a second.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you this thing that I did that helped me. I saw a lady on Instagram have a tiny collection, and I thought that is so smart. And so I have this box. It's kind of super full. It's all little kids stuff. Now it's chokables, so it's not for like babies, but it's stuff that I just found around our house, like little tiny.
How cute.
And this, because now think about, why do we have toys now? It's not so I can remember toys. It's so that for grandkids or for friends' kids, or, we can tell story. One of my boys is an engineer because of Legos, so that's why I want to keep them, but I'm not just going to keep everything forever. It has to have a purpose. But having this, I know when little kids come over, they can sit at a table and they can organize this and play with it. And I did have to buy a few little girls things to put in here because I only had boys things. But now I feel like I have, and it's contained. So I have this thing that other kids can play with. It has a lot of stuff my little boys had growing up that I had sprinkled all over the house. And I just put it right here. And it sits on my desk in my office. It's like a little treasure box. I love it.
What a great idea. And as you were talking, it reminded me when we were missionaries, we were going through a really hard time as a family. And there was a pastor and his wife who they invited us over, and they also hosted a lot. And they had a bin of Playmobiles. Their kids were all grown, but it was such a comfort to be able to go to this house. We lived decently far from our parents, and yet we could go to this pastor's house, and there was this big, interesting bin of Playmobiles that brought my kids so much joy. And meanwhile, we could co-regulate with them and get some of our own stuff worked out while our children were happily playing. So I think that even for those, most of my listeners still are in the toy era. And I think it is so wise to sort of cull down how many categories you have, because those overstimulating playrooms aren't good for your kids, and they're definitely not good for you. And if you're spending more time organizing than you are looking your kids in the eyes or having, just having some enjoyable time together, there was a point where every time I walked in my kids' rooms, I just wanted to organize it. And so that's not necessarily the goal. We have to be able to be present with them. But thinking about, the long-term benefits of having some toys around your house to not just your own children, but your community is so beautiful.
Yep. Yep.
Well, we are about out of time, but I'd love to hear like what's your favorite habit that you talk about in your new book, House Hushing?
Ooh, I think my favorite habit is just quickly hushing a room, or what I call backwards decluttering. And you can even do it just like you can start really small. Like I say, the busiest surface in every room of your house should be empty, which does not mean it's always empty, but empty for me means not decorated. So it doesn't have like a big tablescape and decor and this little box and a mirror like that. No, like my coffee table right now is probably empty. So I call it a designated empty space. My kitchen island right now has my coffee cup and the butter because I made toast. It is empty. And even though I like decor, it serves me best when when everything is kind of put up, that nothing lives on those most used spaces. Our breakfast table, our coffee table, and our kitchen island. It's a baby step into enjoying the idea of simplicity, even though life is chaotic and crazy. And those empty spaces are really invitations. They're invitations for me to cook dinner, for the kids to sit down and do their homework, for everyone to put their feet up, for the cat to take a nap. Like even though I love pretty things, unless I'm styling for like a photo shoot, I truly have an empty coffee table, and it's full a lot because we're putting magazines or the mail. But at the end of the day, I'm cleaning up and nothing lives there, and that has served me so well. And I never in a million years would have thought I'd be a person that doesn't have every inch of a surface decorated, and I'll never go back.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. There's just so much peace in a room that has some empty space on top of the surfaces. So what a great and it's I have tended for myself to actually have fewer surfaces
Mm.
because I'm, like I with the books. I mean the books are my biggest sin. But
Well,
just it's just so easy to fill a surface if you have it. And so these have been great tips, Myquillyn. Where can people find you and learn more about house hushing?
you can find me at thenester.com and on Instagram at thenester, and house hushing is wherever books are sold.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I'm so excited for families to read this beautiful book. Thank you for sharing today.
Thanks for having me.